Hi everyone, welcome to Cook Farm Chickens. We're going to do something a little bit different in this video and in a few videos going forward. It's becoming increasingly difficult to film the birds out because we've got the avian flu lockdown. The pens are mucky. I can't let the birds out. Everything's enclosed. I don't agree with DEFRA's regulations, but that's not for now. But that's the situation that everyone is in. So at the moment, we can't have birds out, we can't have them roaming. So it's making doing instructional videos quite difficult. So what I have is a poultry keeping course, which I do in like village halls and that kind of thing. But again, I can't do that at the moment either because you're not allowed to have any poultry meats. You're not allowed to move birds around the area because of the avian lockdowns. So what I thought I'd do is break the course down into several manageable sort of videos. We're a bit wonky there. Let me move this. My wife does a lot of vlogging and things. I've stolen her setup. So I broke the course down and I'm going to do it in manageable videos of all the different things that you would have on a poultry keeping course. So it's from the beginners going up into quite complicated stuff, but broken down so you can just watch the videos that go over the topics that you're interested in. So we're going to see how it goes. Any feedback and things in the comments would be great. Anything you want to see, any topics, questions you've got, please put them in the comments. And then if I'm going to cover it anyway in one of the videos coming up, I will. If you're watching this in a few months' time and there's already quite a few videos and there's still something I haven't covered, then please just drop a comment. I do read as many as I can. Sometimes YouTube, you don't get the notifications and I do miss some, but please comment there and I'll try and do a video answering your question, or I'll respond directly to you if it's a simple sort of answer. So we'll see how we go. So I'm sitting off center because we're going to test my editing skills now. So this area here will hopefully be filled with some visual aids for what I'm talking about. But otherwise you're just watching a strange man talk about chickens. Isn't that interesting? So hopefully with what I'm saying, with the pictures, and I'll put some text and things, whatever is appropriate. If I can work out how to interlay a video, if I am that clever, I am a humble farmer, then there may be some video clips I can also have sort of playing as I'm whining on. So this is an introduction, but we'll start with the basics of chickens. Also apologies for the noise in the background. My son has brought canaries, which are loud. So hopefully they don't interfere too much. I may have to move them, although we have so many animals in this place, so I'm running out of room to put animals. So the canaries are in here. So all breeds of chicken make amazing pets. They are highly intelligent and they do love people. They do love being part of the family and playing and being involved in sort of social activities. Chickens will recognise your face. They will know your voice. They will recognise individual members of the family, normally the one that's got the food, if I'm honest. But they are much better, in my opinion. Everything I mention, just for legal clarity, everything I say is in my opinion. People may differ. In my opinion, chickens are much better pets for children than things like rabbits and guinea pigs. They take a lot less care. They're a lot easier to handle. Your child is a lot less likely to get hurt by being bitten, etc., by a chicken than a guinea pig rabbit. They're easier to clean out. They're easier to manage. In the day, they just look after themselves. A rabbit or a guinea pig just left in a hutch, not allowed a lot of freedom in its run, whatever, because you're out for the day, isn't really good for the rabbit or whatever's life. Whereas a chicken is easy, you can let it out and go about your business, and it's fun as well for the kids to collect the eggs and see how that sort of food cycle works. Having said that, chickens are not vending machines. Over the years of selling, I do get quite a few emails, phone calls from customers that have brought chickens. Oh, my chicken hasn't laid an egg today. No, never mind. chickens do not lay eggs every single day. We'll cover the breeds in a minute, but different breeds lay different number of eggs, and more purebred natural breeds don't really lay that many eggs at all. In the wild, animals do not lay eggs for food, for the fun of it. They lay a clutch of eggs to hatch, and that is it. So over the years, humans have selectively bred these birds, which is the hybrid hens, which we'll get to produce unfertile eggs every single day, or majority of days, maybe 5 out of the 7 in a week. So no, your chicken won't lay an egg every day, but if you have 6 hens, you should be guaranteed 4 eggs every day. That's sort of how it works if you're keeping them for 4 eggs. So what breed should you get? What breed is best for you? Now, that'll be a different answer for many different people. There are hundreds of different breeds of chicken. They're all very similar, but the differences can be whether that bird is suitable for you and your family and your lifestyle or not. So we're going to separate chickens into 3 different classes. So you've got your purebred hens. These are your purebred chickens. They're also known as the foundation breeds or heritage breeds, UK heritage breeds. Then you've got your hybrids, which are your most common, which most people have as pets and for egg laying and that kind of thing. It's your hybrid hens. They're the ones that have been selectively bred by crossbreeding different purebreds several times in some occasions to get a particular look or egg yield from that bird. And then in the 3rd category, we'll put your fancy breeds, your bantams, which there are many different purebreds, hybrids. All bantams are not natural. All purebred, all bantam breeds have been selectively bred, but it's been so long now that you now have purebred bantams, although they originally weren't, if that makes sense. So yeah, we'll put bantams, fancy breeds, all that sort of together. So your purebred hens are the oldest breeds. They're the more original. There's not many breeds that are still around that were around from the original chicken. Certainly not in the UK. In more sort of eastern countries, you have the more wild chicken where all this sort of came from and bred from. So you've got different types of chicken that have evolved differently around the world, and then humans have cultivated that to make their own breeds and things. So you have different looks and different styles from the heritage breeds, the pure breeds, depending on what type of the country type of place in the world they're from. So your English birds, your European birds that have been bred for sort of meat and egg are generally quite bulky birds, flightless, very docile sort of animal. Something like your light Sussex is one of the oldest. Or if you go towards the more sort of Asian countries, it's a very flamboyant, very like birds of paradise looking with the feathers, long green feathers, much taller birds. So, and as you go to sort of China, you have those, and then the Indians have like sort of faster birds, muscular, very different look to them. So you can tell where a purebred has come from around the world based on its sort of attributes quite easily. So the Western chicken, obviously this is YouTube, you can be watching this from anywhere in the world, but most of the chickens we're going to talk about are going to be the Western style chicken, because that's where I am and that's what I farm and breed, and generally what most Europeans and American audiences would be looking at purchasing. So as I was saying, so yeah, purebreds are the base of all hybrid hens. So all hybrid come from a purebred somewhere down the line, and a lot of work has gone into sort of experimenting with the different breeds and back breeding and things to get the particular look of sort of like the Rhode Island, like you've got the Rhode Rock will come from a Rhode Island red combined with like a French Moran to create this distinctive look. The Isa Brown. Isa Brown is actually a trademark. The name Isa, it's a French company, owns that, and a lot of brown hens aren't actually Isa Browns, but they are sold as Isa Browns. It's a bit like Aldi's Coke calling itself Coca-Cola. It is the same thing, but it's the brand. So yeah, Isa Browns are a bit odd because they're trademarked. but a brown hen is a brown hen. Yeah, as I said before, the purebred hens don't lay as many eggs. You don't keep purebred hens really for egg production, apart from some of the breeds where you want a particular looking egg, so you can get your blue eggs and your dark brown eggs. Then you would need the specific purebred hen that does that. There are a few hybrids that will do a blue shell and a brown shell, like a darker brown, but there's not that many of them. That attribute that is needed for the coloured eggs is more in the purebred birds. It doesn't really come through into the hybrids because of the crossbreeding. So purebred hens you can take to country fairs. If you have a particularly good example, you can show them off when DEFRA hasn't banned everything. You can't do that with hybrids. You can't really take a hybrid to a country fair. It would be like taking a mongrel dog to Crufts. They're interested in the purebred, the heritage breeds. So that is one thing you can do with purebred if you're into that kind of thing. Countryside sports and things can be quite fun. Again, with the bantams and the sort of chicken fancying, there's a whole community of people that breed birds and things to show at these places, and there's quite a lot of money involved. So if that's a line you wanted to go down, you wouldn't be able to do that with a hybrid. You'd have to invest in your purebreds to be taking birds to this kind of event and show. So the most well-known of the purebreds in the UK is your light Sussex, which there is a hybrid version as well, but there is the purebred light Sussex, which is a bit bigger than the hybrid version. And then you've got your Orpingtons. Your Orpingtons, a very old breed, very popular breed. They come in 4 recognised colours, which is buff, blue, black and white. And yeah, the Sussex is, you have 8 varieties of that, the light Sussex being one of the varieties. The Asian breeds that I was talking about are more like the jungle fowl. They've become quite fashionable due to like the films like Moana. You've got Hey Hey the chicken. That's an Asian breed of chicken. And social media crazes of I can never pronounce this chicken correctly, so forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, but there is an all black chicken called the Ayam Serrani. It's completely black, feathers are black, head's black, skin's black, the blood, I think the blood is red, but the meat is black, the bones are black. Social media has made that quite a sought after bird, and the prices on it are ridiculous. If you have paid hundreds and hundreds of pounds for your pure black chicken, I can only feel sorry for you, really, because they're not worth any money at all. They're not worth any more money than any other bird. They're not harder to breed, they're not rarer at all. Social media are just exploiting people that want an exotic, fancy looking bird that actually is no harder to come across than any other chicken, really. So beware of that, beware of fads and being ripped off on the fancier birds. Always do a bit of research. There's lots of breeders of these birds around that have been doing it for years, and we'll be able to advise you better on the purebreds wherever in the country or world you are from. Okay, so the pros, we're going to do a bit of a pros and cons. Pros of keeping a purebred chicken. So they have some of the best looking chickens. They're some of the biggest ones, some of the nicest in terms of colouring and patterning on the feathers and things you're going to get in your purebreds. Like I said before, you can exhibit them and you can win prizes. If you've got a good one you've looked after, there's a whole community out there, and there will be a local one to you, which you look it up. If that's what you're interested in, you can win prizes with your prize chicken, your prize got. It's a fun thing to do, and you can do that with your purebreds. So yeah, you've got the communal and social aspect of that as well. So it's not just you with your chickens. You can make new friends with chickens. You doing these shows and things, make a bit of a name for yourself. It is a good fun thing to do. The cons, some can be expensive, as I was just saying about the black chickens. Some breeds now go for hundreds of pounds. There's no need for them to be that expensive. There'll be a breeder in the country that says they're the only person in the country that does this particular breed of chicken, therefore they're now really rare and they command this price of hundreds and hundreds of pounds. There's generally a reason they're the only breeder doing that particular bird. Half the time it's because it's not that great and no one else wants to do it. But I suppose if you particularly want that breed and they are the only one with it, then you pay the price. So there is that. People sort of set their own prices with purebred, using that purebred as a selling point. They are hard to find though, and like I say, you might be the only person in the country that breeds your particular breed that you're looking for. So you may have a journey of hundreds of miles to go and collect your prize hen. You can't mix them with other breeds of chicken. Well, now of course you can. If you wanted them as pets, then of course you could mix them. But for breeding purposes and for show purposes, you would have to keep them completely separate. So you would end up with one pen of chickens all looking exactly the same, and another pen of chickens all looking exactly the same. You wouldn't have a mixed flock of purebreds generally, unless you had a lot of money to spare and you fancied a very pretty mixed flock. But in terms of showing and all that kind of thing, you need separate pens. They don't lay as many eggs, so the purebreds are not really worth keeping for egg production. You get 80 eggs a year or less from the purebred hen. So perfectly fine if it's on yourself or a small family or what have you, if you've got a few of them. But for commercial egg laying, purebreds are no good at all. They're not as resistant to disease as hybrids at all. They don't have a strong immunity. Now you can get them vaccinated and things, which is, I will cover that in another video, because vaccination of chickens is a minefield. But just in general, their immunity is not as great. It's a bit, again, I'll compare with dogs. Purebred dogs are more inclined to get hip problems, hip dysplasia, back problems, growing problems, cancer, whereas a mongrel dog doesn't have those issues because you've got the blood from a different species coming in, making that animal actually stronger. It's the same with chickens. Hybrid hens are stronger in terms of immunity to outside forces like disease and infections. They are more likely to brood than a hybrid, much more likely. So that reduces your enjoyment of the bird when it's constantly wanting to sit on eggs and doesn't come out of the house. Makes them a bit boring. And then you have the stress factor as well. If you're trying to show a bird and it goes broody and plucks all its feathers out, yeah, they require a bit more maintenance on that front in preempting things like removing nest boxes and things. You can't really leave them to it if you're showing them. And they take longer to tame. Hybrid birds seem to naturally be quite people friendly. And that could be because most hybrid birds don't ever have a mum. They're bred in incubators, hatched in incubators rather. First thing they see is a human. They're fed by a human all the way through their chick life. So they're very comfortable, whereas purebreds are likely to be hatched in the incubator. They're more likely to be left naturally to raise with the mother, making them more wild. When you're ready to sort of wean them from the mother, they're harder to tame. Can be more aggressive, especially the cockerels. They can be a lot more aggressive than the hybrid version. So the pros of keeping a hybrid hen then, sort of the reverse really of the purebred. So they're very resilient to disease. That is a combination of them being vaccinated as chicks, and their general immunity is stronger because of that hybridization, that crossbreeding. Very friendly, very good with kids. Generally come to you rather than running away from you, which is always handy. And they make great family pets. A lot of people have them walking around the house. Chickens are incontinent, so I wouldn't put them on your carpet. No. They live very happily with all other types of birds. Hybrid birds very rarely that have really bad fights. The chickens always have a bit of a scuffle when you're mixing them and putting new birds in. Generally speaking, they live very happily all together with no issues at all. They lay hundreds of eggs a year. Now, a lot of how do I use a word? So, eco-activists, vegan sort of people that are against keeping birds for eggs and say that this is cruel to keep a bird for egg. Well, hybrid bird has been bred to do this. So you're not forcing a hybrid bird to lay hundreds of eggs. It does it naturally. Now, yes, we have selectively bred those birds to be able to do that, but it is what they do. And it will lay those eggs regardless of you eating them or not. So you're not forcing a bird to lay eggs. The only way you can force a hybrid bird to produce even more eggs than it would do naturally is to trick it in terms of season, and that's when you keep them in barns and you don't let them know it's the winter. So you keep the temperature the same, the lighting the same throughout the year. The bird has no clue that it's coming to the autumn, so it needs to stop laying. That is not correct. You shouldn't be doing that, but who does that? So you're not forcing the bird to lay hundreds of eggs. It does naturally do that. Hybrid hens are reasonably priced. The prices has gone up lately. Has everything gone up? Because the price of bird food gone up and the electric, the farmers have had to, myself included, have had to put the price of the hybrid hens up. But it's still a cheap pet. It's still generally less than 20 quid for a hybrid. Some of them will fetch a bit more than that now, but yeah, 20, £25 for a hybrid is what you're looking at currently. And they're easy to find. Every breeder will do hybrids. Even if they're doing specialist birds, they will still have the hybrids, because that's the bread and butter of the poultry industry. Everyone wants the hybrid hens, and then you'll find each farmer will specialise in another branch. So everyone does the hybrids, and quite often I've got I'll sell out of road rocks 1 month, and I'll ring around the other farmers. You've got any road rocks? Yeah, I've got a couple hundred. And farmers do that with hybrids, but you don't do it with your specialist birds. So I went into bantams and ducks, and then more into ducks, because I was the only farmer in the area doing ducks. I learned very quickly why. They're very messy and loud and smelly, and but that was fine. It then meant I had my ducks and then the hybrids. So hybrids are relatively easy to come across. If you can't find the exact breed you want, someone in the area will have them, which is another pro. The other thing about hybrids is one looks very similar to the other. So if your road rock is lost, you can probably get another road rock that looks exactly the same before your kid comes home from school, if you get the drift. So there is that as well. So the cons, though, is the same. Apart from the coloration, they're all sort of the same. So if you wanted all interesting shapes and sizes, all hybrid hens are the same. They just have a different colour. But in terms of size and all that kind of thing, they're the same. You can't show them at fairs because they're not a purebred bird, but they're hybrids. So you could have the prettiest hybrid bird you've ever seen in your life. You can't show it at a country fair because it's not a purebred bird. The other con of a hybrid bird is you can't breed them. If you breed a bluebell cockerel with a bluebell hen, the chicks will not be bluebells. They'll be something different because they will have the grandparent genes. So to get a bluebell, you would have bred one purebred with another purebred. You would have taken that chick, so you've now crossbred 2 purebred species and got a chick. That chick would then be crossbred with a 3rd species of purebred, creating your bluebell. If you then bred 2 bluebells together, the grandparent genes would come through, and the chicks would just be a multitude of different colours. You may get one that looks like a bluebell, or you might get a white one, an orange one, or a tiny one, or a massive one. You can't breed hybrids to make more hybrids. It doesn't work like that. So a bit like if you had a labradoodle, you got a Labrador and a poodle, you get a labradoodle. If you then breed the labradoodle with another labradoodle, I've said labradoodle too many times, the resulting pup is not a labradoodle, it's something completely different, a mystery. It's the same with the hybrid birds, you can't breed them. Okay, bantam breeds. So there are so many different bantam breeds now. They are almost a sort of species in their own right. They started as just a miniature version, so you would have a light Sussex, a good example. So you'd have a light Sussex, the hybrid light Sussex, and then the bantam light Sussex. So it's like a dwarf, like a miniature version of that. From that, obviously they're very popular. Anything mini is popular, micro pigs and all that. So there's a micro chicken. So because of their popularity, lots and lots of different ones are bred, and they come in a variety. It's far too many for me to list. Everyone loves them because of how cute they are, and they're small and they're fluffy, and a lot of the time they're sold as like a good children's chicken or a starter chicken. I'll start out with bantams. They're actually harder to keep than the bigger breeds. And this is because of the way they've been bred. So a lot of them have fluffy feet, which is a nightmare in the mud. They also have small chicken syndrome, especially the males, the cockerels. The most aggressive cockerels that you will find are the smaller breeds, the bantam breeds. The bigger the cockerel, more gentle they are, the more damage they can do if they do kick off, for sure. But generally they're more placid. The bantam breeds, they're like little Jack Russells. They go for your ankles big time. And they're also no quieter. A bantam cockerel is certainly louder than a bigger cockerel. Probably not in terms of decibels, because they haven't got sort of the lung capacity as the bigger breeds, but it's more shrill. It gets right through your head. It really does. And they go and go and go. A bantam cockerel is more annoying to your neighbours and to you than a larger breed. So they're not a good option really to start with. I mean, they're not impossible to look after. They are fun, and they can live with your larger breed, especially the hybrids. Although there are some bantam breeds that are only suited to bantam breeds, and there are some bantam breeds really need to be kept on their own because they are so specialist in the way they've been bred. The Polish is probably the best example of this. Now, there are people that keep Polish with other chickens, and there's no problem. But we found it impossible to do. So it might well depend on available space and setup, and also quantity and numbers. When you're breeding things, you have lots of them. But we found the Polish hen, because it has this massive crest of feathers that comes down, they can't see very well. And when they're all together, and you've just got Polish, they're fine. But when you've got other breeds, they tend to get pecked on the head, and they can't see who did it. Or where it came from, and they end up getting bullied. And because most of the Polish breeds have got a white crest, if it gets pecked and it bleeds, chickens are attracted to blood. Chickens are not herbivores, they are omnivores. They will eat meat, and they are cannibalistic as well. That's a downside to them. They are little dinosaurs, literally. So once the chicken starts bleeding, just instinctively other chickens will peck at that bleeding area, and you can come back to a bloodbath with things like a Polish that can't defend itself from the other chickens. So you need to be aware of that. Probably the most popular one is like a Peking. Peking bantams live very happily with most other breeds. There's no issue at all. Pekings, even the females though, are louder than normal sized hens in terms of sort of clucking around. They have more calls, so a bantam will sing an egg song. Every time it lays an egg, it will make a racket. They're more alert predators, so if they see a bird flying above them, they will do an alarm call, which the bigger bird probably wouldn't, because to the bigger bird, the small buzzard or kestrel is not a threat. To the smaller bantam, it is a threat. Therefore, they will do an alarm call. So if you've got neighbours, a big flock of bantams might not be the best idea, because they are louder. You are aware you have them, whereas larger breed chickens, half the time your neighbours won't even know you've got them. So there is that to bear in mind with the bantam breeds, the noise they make. Some bantam breeds can fly. I use the term loosely, it is more falling with style. But they can, because they don't weigh a lot and they've got the flight feathers. If they wanted to, they could get up and over a 6-foot fence. They can get up into your trees. So they can't fly off, but they can jump very high distances by flapping, and then use that to basically climb their way out of places. So you do have to be aware of that, and you can get around it with either wing clipping or a fully enclosed, like aviary type enclosure, and then they'll be fine. We have bantams roaming around our garden. We've only got sort of a 3-foot wall. Chickens are odd. Just because they can get out doesn't mean they will. But then they've got the personality of the chicken as well. Some chickens are just curious, and they want to cross the road, literally. So you will keep chickens for years in the enclosure, and they will never go anywhere. and then you'll buy that one chicken that's especially curious, and it will be getting out all over the place. So yeah, with the bantams, you need to be more cautious on their ability to escape. So I mentioned Pekings already, mainly because they are the most popular. They come in an array of colours. The Pekings, you can get so many different colours, and even in terms of sort of breeding for shows, if you bred a white Peking with another white Peking, you're not actually guaranteed to get a white Peking. You will get these grandparent genes going through, and you'll get an array of colours, and some of them are absolutely stunning. They're very resistant to disease, even without vaccination. The Bantam breeds. I'm not sure why that is. If you do know, put it in the comments. I'm sure there is a reason. But most Bantam breeds are not vaccinated as chicks, purely because you don't eat them. You can eat the eggs, but they're so small, you need sort of 3 to every 1 of a normal sized egg. So you can eat them, most people don't. They're all right for sort of baking and that kind of thing. But because they're not used for meat and generally not used for eggs, they're not vaccinated. But even without that vaccination, they get ill a lot less than other birds. They are prone to mycoplasma. They are quite prone to that, but I will cover disease in another video. Silkies are another very unique sort of bantam breed. Some of them can get quite big, to the point there is a little bit of confusion on silkies whether there is a bantam breed and a full-size breed, or if you do just sometimes get giant silkies, and I think it's probably a bit of both. The silkies are bantams, but they are so inbred to get the specific look of the silky feather that you get all sorts of abnormalities with them. Silkies have very weird feet. They have an extra toe, which is a carryover gene from they don't need it to. It is a mutation. They have blue skin. They have black bones. They're an odd bird, but they're stunning, and people love them because they look so different. They're not quite as tame as a Peking. They can get there with attention and love and care and all that, but they're not naturally as tame as a Peking. You do need to spend a bit more time with them. The biggest problem with a silkie is they're not waterproof. The feathers are not waterproof. If they get caught out in the rain, they will become waterlogged. So you get a lot of respiratory problems in silkies purely because they're cold, they're freezing. So you do need to be aware, especially in the British winters with silkies, that they are kept dry. As long as they're kept dry, they'll be all right. But if it's been really muddy, really wet, windy, and they've become waterlogged, and then the temperature drops, you do run the risk of losing them or creating quite bad respiratory issues. So you do need to keep an eye on silkies, but they are a stunning breed. They can live mostly with everything. The only other thing with them, because when chickens fight, they sort of grab each other's feathers. Because the silkie's feather is basically just big baby chick fluff, it can become quite injured. They haven't quite got that padding, that protection. The beak of the other bird will go right through and get their skin. So I wouldn't put a silkie with a very large bird unless you knew the temperament of that bird was friendly, because the damage could be quite fatal, to be honest. So you do need to be careful there. The other breed to mention of note, I get asked a lot for, is something called a Frizzle. Now, a Frizzle Bantam isn't a breed. It could be anything, but a Frizzle is when the feathers grow backwards. So rather than curving in around the body, they grow outwards. It's a mutation, and then you can get a Frizzle in anything. So you can get a Peking Frizzle, a Polish Frizzle, you can even get a Silky Frizzle. It's a bizarre mutation that just occurs. Now, Frizzles are expensive and they are rare purely because you can't breed them. So if you breed a Frizzle with a Frizzle, you're more likely to get a Frizzle, but not guaranteed. You might get none. Your entire clutch may be Frizzles, but you might get none. It's a little bit like having a redhead in the family. I suppose it's every now and again it will pop up and you'll have a redhead baby. It's a bit like that. you rarely get a random Frizzle. So if you've got no Frizzle blood in your breeding group, it's unlikely one's going to pop out as a Frizzle. Could happen though. It could. But yeah, they're not. There's nothing apart from the look. They're exactly the same as the other breeds of whatever breed they're from. But they are fun to look at. They have problems preening themselves because they don't know their feathers are growing backwards, so they will preen them instinctively like a normal bird does, but their feather doesn't go that way. It's not a real issue, but again, a bit like the silkies, they need a bit of care in the wind and rain because their feathers are growing in the wrong direction. So everything blows in the wrong direction and they get a bit confused and wet. So yeah, and colder as well because they haven't got the feathers laying on top of each other, they're all popping out. They can't trap that warm air, which is how they keep warm. They sort of open the feathers up, you'll see them do it, they sort of puff up, traps the warm air, and they close down and sit. A Frizzle can't do that, all the air comes out, so you need to be careful they're not getting too cold. But they are beautiful birds and do make a good addition to a collection. I don't know if you can show a Frizzle. It's a mutation. I don't know. You have to check with your club. Not sure on that one. Bantams, all Bantam breeds lay between 150, 200 eggs a year, maybe less, but they very rarely lay in the winter. Frizzles, Bantam breeds are very seasonal birds, so they will lay all through the spring, all through the summer, and into the autumn. But they won't lay in the winter at all. They're more like a natural bird in that respect. So I think that's pretty much it on the basics of the chickens that are there. Obviously there are hundreds more breeds than I've covered, but they will fall into one of these three categories. They will either be a purebred, heritage bird, there'll be a hybrid bird, which is bred for egg production and sort of the pet trade, or it'll be a fancy bantam. There are other offshoots to bantams. In terms of show birds, you can get some very fancy miniature birds and things, but I'm not going to cover them here because that's not what you're normally going to be getting. That's more into really fancy chicken keeping and not something you're going to come across when you're selecting what birds to get. Something like a Siama, who's a tiny little bird. It's a bit like pigeon keeping at that stage. That is the particular bird you're looking for and would keep it on its own. We're talking about birds you'd want in a flock, starting out, that kind of thing. So they're the three sort of breeds areas that you would be looking at. So I hope this has been helpful. Hopefully I've worked out how to get all the videos and pictures and fancy things going on beside me. Otherwise, quite a dull video of a lot of grey open. So anyway, I hope this has worked. I hope it's been helpful. I'll be doing episode 2 soon, which will be about egg production, and how to do the best for your bird with the egg selection, that type of thing, and hatching, and then we'll move on from there. So we'll go through, there'll probably be at least 10 videos in total, and yeah, I'll try and release one at least weekly. So yeah, I hope this has been helpful, and we'll see you on the next one.